Are you planning on rejetting the carburetor on your dual sport bike? Or you want to do the sMod on your Honda XR650L? Now in this video I chat about stuff I wish I knew before I did it. And this is stuff that you won't see in the instructions, so stick around. Hi, I'm Francois from adventurebiketroop.com, where we chat about bike riding, maintenance, travel tips and more. In this video I want to chat to you about rejecting your carburetor on any bike and doing the sMod specifically on the Honda XR650L. Now this is not a technical how-to video, step-by-step how-to video. I'll link the exact steps for the sMod in the description below. This is rather a video on my experience as an amateur mechanic and what you need to look out for when you do the sMod or when you reject your carburetor. And this is stuff that I wish I knew before, and this is stuff you won't see in the instructions to sMod or rejecting your carburetor. Now, why would you want to do the sMod on the Honda XR650L? Now, a lot of people will say there's a lot more power because you add bigger jets, you drill the slide, you shim the needle, and there's the snorkel of the airbox. So there's a whole lot of stuff that you do to the bike to make it more powerful. Now, whether you really get more horsepower, it's questionable. I don't think it's conclusive. A lot of people say it doesn't make a difference, it just runs better, or there's better throttle response. But the main reason why I did this is because it's common knowledge that the Honda XR650L is jetted lean from the factory to pass emissions tests. I mean, it is an old primitive engine, air-cooled engine. So the main reason why I did the sMod is to richen the mixture so that it runs cooler. Because for me, reliability is way more important than power. And for me, as an inexperienced dirt biker, there's more than enough power or torque on this bike to get into serious trouble. So it wasn't for the power, it was for reliability, and especially to make the engine run cooler. Oh, and there's another reason, and this is probably, I'd say, the main reason. It's just fun to fiddle with bikes. I mean, why would you buy an old primitive designed bike like this and then not play around and fiddle and mod it? If you wanted a bike that already runs good, you can just buy a BMW or a new Africa Twin or something like that, or an EFI bike like the XT660R or Z. So for some reason, we KLR and XR and DR riders just like to fiddle with bikes, and that's one of the main reasons also why I did the sMod. So like I said, this video is not a step-by-step tutorial. There's others out there that's pretty good. I'll link it in the description below. This is stuff that I wish I knew before I did the sMod. Now, if you are anything like me, you are not an experienced mechanic, but you like to fiddle with stuff and you always break stuff and learn stuff as you go along. And there's always something you wish someone had told you before you did the job. And that's why I made this video. Because there's a couple of things that I didn't do right the first time around. And I've had this carburetor off the bike so many times. And a lot of people will say the XR650L is fiddly with the jetting, the original kind carburetor. So it does take some trial and error. So this is what I want to share with you. Now, the first thing that you have to remember when you take out the carburetor is cleanliness. You have to work very cleanly. So when you take off the carb, wash the bike first. Make sure that there's no dirt around the choke that you're going to have to take out and around the boots on either side of the carburetor where it fits to the airbox and to the intake manifold. And then when you've got the carb off, you're going to have to take off the top of the carburetor. There's 4 screws there. Be very careful not to strip the screws, they're very soft. I'm still waiting for replacement screws. I didn't strip mine, but you may want to replace them, so get them beforehand. Be careful when you take it off. There's a diaphragm in the top, so be careful not to pinch the diaphragm. If that diaphragm tears, you're going to suck air there and it's not ever going to run right again. So be careful with the diaphragm. Inside the slide, which you are going to drill out, inside the slide there's a little plastic widget, and it's very easy to strip this widget. I stripped mine, with the Phillips head screwdriver. So luckily you can use a socket on it as well. Another thing is I damaged the spring inside. Everything is still working fine on that side, but just be careful as you take it out. Don't be in a rush. Always make sure you have enough time to do this job slowly, and then don't stop halfway, which I'll come to next. So the top, that's what you look out on the top. At the bottom, again, you remove the float bowl with 4 screws. Be careful not to strip those out. Be careful, there's a little rubber O-ring around the side or washer around the side. Just take that out carefully and then clean out the carburetor. Very important, you have to clean out the float bowl. There was some gunk in mine which I just ignored for some weird reason. And then afterwards realized I should have cleaned it out properly, because the pilot jet hole is so small that any little bit of dirt that you dislodge will go in there and will clog the pilot jet, and it won't idle properly, it won't run properly. So very important, when you open the carburetor, always be prepared to clean it out properly. So I took it apart again. I removed the gasket from the float bowl, and then I washed it out properly with a vinegar and water solution, and then sprayed it out again with carb cleaner and a little tissue paper just to clean out every little speck inside. Also remove the drain hole, remove the fuel mixture screw, and the pilot jet and the main jet, remove those, and then spray through all the passages. You have to remove the mixture screw as well, because the pilot jet and the mixture screw passage is connected. So basically just spray out everything, make sure it's clean. Be very careful with the float, you don't want to damage that. That is something they do mention in the instructions. Okay, so now you've cleaned all the parts. Be careful when you take out the fuel mixture screw. That's the one at the bottom with the tab that you have to grind off. There's a certain order that the parts have to go into. Mine just fell out. And I've Googled this, and there's a lot of inconsistency on how it needs to go in, but it's pretty simple. It's when you take the screw, it's first a spring on the screw, then the little washer, then the O-ring, and then it goes into the carburetor. Be careful not to damage the O-ring as you screw it back in. But anyways, when you take it out, just be careful, there's parts going to come out, and it has to be those three: the spring, the washer, and the O-ring. When you grind off the tab, I was a bit overzealous with the hacksaw, and I slipped just as I went through the tab that you have to grind off, and the whole thing fell on the floor and I broke off the tip. So I got a replacement that's better anyways, because it's longer. You can now adjust it from the outside. So anyways, be careful. The problem then is I stopped there and I left it for a week while I waited for the mixture screw, and I didn't put everything back together again. And then when I got the mixture screw, I put it back in and I went for a ride, and it just ran horribly. And what I forgot is to tighten the float bowl screws. And I know that's a stupid mistake that none of you will make, but the message here is don't stop a job halfway. Finish the job. Otherwise, stuff like that happens. Or put everything back together, or leave everything apart. But don't stop halfway somewhere. You're going to forget what you did last time and make a mistake like I did there. Okay, now let's get geeky with the jet sizes. The stock jet sizes on the XR650L is a 50 pilot jet and a 152 main jet. That's the size of the holes. Now, the sMod calls for a 55 pilot jet, so 2 sizes bigger, and I think it's 2 sizes, and then a 158 main jet. And that's what I did. So I ordered those and I stuck it in there. The bike ran well, but I had a few problems. The one problem is the fuel consumption was horrible. Now, I don't ride carefully, I play around with the bikes. As you'll see in some of the other videos, if you've subscribed to this channel now, riding in the mud, doing donuts, and crashing with the bike. So so the fuel consumption was terrible. It wasn't great before. I think before with the stock jetting, I measured it twice and it was 16.5 kilometers per liter, thereabouts. But I was quite hard on the throttle and only playing around in the dirt here, not long distance highway riding. So that went down to 12.5 kilometers per liter. I mean, that's terrible for a 650 single cylinder bike with that main jet. And the other problem is with the mixture screw, the fuel mixture screw. You start off with 2.5 turns out, and then from there you can adjust it as in the description below, in the instructions in the description below. And I had to screw it in all the way in almost, and the bike still wouldn't lower, or the idle wouldn't drop. So that means the pilot jet was way too big, way too rich, too much fuel coming in. So then I read up again, did some research on the jet sizes. So one person said, no, the sMod is good from sea level. That's where sMod is supposed to be correct. From sea level to 6,000 feet, that's what they said. But I'm at 2,000 feet, And then I also found some places where they said for every 2,000 feet you rise in altitude, you need to go down one jet side on the pilot and the main jet. That makes sense because as you rise, there's less oxygen, so there's less air coming in, so the mixture will richen by itself. So then I went back and ordered the sizes in between. So one size down from Dave's mod. So that's a 52 pilot and a 155 main jet. And that's what I've got in there now. And I've tested this with the fuel. The first tank I got 17 kilometers per liter. It's still not great. I would love to see about 20. I know other people get 20 kilometers per liter, but it's much better. The only caveat is this was completely unscientific. I rode mostly on the highway. Well, almost all of the tank was on the highway. But I do have to add that I fitted a 14-tooth sprocket in the front. The stock one was 15. So the first tank I mentioned was, I think, on the 15. Then I switched. So I played around with different sprocket sizes as well. But at least from 12.5 yesterday to 17 today, the one was more playing around in the dirt, one was highway. But that bigger difference can not only be about the riding style. I think the jets obviously made a big difference there. So anyways, play around with the jet sizes, do your research, and don't just follow the instructions as is without being careful and planning ahead and chatting with other people that's done it before. So if you have any questions on the Dave's mod, my experience with doing it myself, and then any rejetting, please ask in the comments below. If I can't answer you, I'll just say so and someone else will hopefully pop in, and it might give me ideas for future videos that I can research and then record. I've got 4 different size sprockets on its way. I think a 13, 14, 15 and 16 tooth sprocket, the Frisco sprockets, which I'm going to test comprehensively and compare more scientifically, hopefully, with an accelerometer on this channel. So please subscribe now so that you don't miss that. And then if you have any questions or any ideas that you want me to test while I test those 4 sprockets, put that in the comments below as well. I'd love to hear from you and make those videos as helpful as possible. And then please give a thumbs up to this video so more people can see this and find this before they mess around with their jets on their bikes. Thank you for joining me, and I love the support, and I'll see you next week. Cheers!